Good evening, everyone. So basically, the topic that I'm going to discuss is my research, which is about investigating corporate social accounting disclosures in the context of local communities in the Kingdom of Bahrain, right? So that topic basically was chosen due to many things happening at the same time. If we look at local communities and the global agenda, right, if we exclude accounting from the equation, we will see that a key review of the global progress towards sustainable developments show a very dire picture about what's happening when it comes to local communities. United Nations in their report showed a deep concern for local communities with particular focus in vulnerable groups. There is evidence demonstrating a worrying downgrade trajectory when it comes to the well-being of local communities due to the economic hardship, resource scarcity, climate change, social fragmentation, discrimination, among many other challenges. So based on the present trends, for example, 575 million people worldwide face the grim reality of poverty by 2030. And we have a narrowing path when it comes to the climate change and what we can do about it. SDG 11 is focusing on local communities in particular very explicitly, but many other SDGs also address local communities, including no poverty. And technically, every single SDG has to do with local communities. So this is when it comes to worldwide. Now, when we have a look at the local agenda and why Bahrain in particular, we'll see a notable shift towards sustainability in the last few years. There were several milestones in Bahrain, including joining the Paris Climate Agreement. Bahrain was the first country in the Gulf to establish a ministry concerned with sustainable development, monitoring the progress as it relates to how much we achieved when it comes to that. And now how all that fits within the accounting framework is basically, so for many years, there was a non-financial reporting practice dominating, financial reporting practice was dominating, but sustainability accounting came into play very lately, right? Bahrain Bourse has established this is what's happening worldwide, so Bahrain Bourse followed suit. There's a focus now on sustainability reporting on areas beyond the financial, and this was a shift in the accounting profession. So basically, accountants were told very lately that, okay, it's not just about the financials, it's beyond that. And we have to report, companies would have to actually tackle issues that relate to sustainable development. And these can include environmental issues, social issues, and other economic issues. Now, one of the sustainability accounting issues is actually how to disclose how companies can disclose how they can contribute and their impact on local communities. The Central Bank of Bahrain, to put it into context, the Central Bank of Bahrain has issued a ESG reporting guideline specifying that listed companies in Bahrain are expected to, it was voluntary to report on such items, but it's effective December 2024. The expectation is that sustainability reporting is becoming mandatory, and that justifies the need why this research is important, because we are in a shift when it comes to the regulatory framework, where we were and where we want to be. So it's really time in Bahrain to look into the way we do our sustainability reporting and how we can fix it to or refine it to address the next step and contribute towards achieving the SDGs at a local level. The problem is basically the lack of research investigating the evolving social disclosure practices with a particular focus on local communities. Now, because if I want to address any social issue, there are many social issues that can be addressed. But for it to be a PhD, right, we'll have to put it, we have to narrow it down. Now, local communities was what I decided to go for the reasons I already explained. Now, there is also an issue with the localized implications of the reporting, meaning sometimes there is research about sustainability reporting there, but there isn't enough research that deals with the how sustainability reporting is applied in a particular context. And this is something that literature review has established clearly, because local communities in different places, local communities are different in different places. Sometimes even within the same particular context, within the same particular country, you can have different communities. And therefore, the research was establishing a clear gap that, we need to look into the context, the very specific context, local communities that are, when we talk about local communities in the US or in the UK, it's not the same way when we are talking about local communities in Bahrain, and therefore there was that need that, the gap that we had to address in the research. So reviewing the current state of knowledge to explore the relationship between corporation and local communities, that was important in the context of social disclosure, because the mechanism where companies assert that they did have a positive impact on local communities is through their reporting. Reporting is the accounting mechanism for companies to address that particular concern. And because, as I said, we are in a development phase when it comes to our regulation, we have to basically evaluate the extent to which Bahrain established regulatory guidelines are actually confirming with the international practice. Because CBB issued that guideline saying, look, companies will have to basically tell us, and every stakeholder will have to tell us, what do you think about this and how do we move forward? So that the research was addressing that very particular development. To reach a very good conclusion, then we had to actually analyze the reporting of the companies. So we had to look into the sustainability report of companies operating in Bahrain. And when I say companies, I mean companies that disclose that are required or that feel that they are forced to do it due to several reasons that I would address in my conceptual framework, theoretical background. This includes listed companies, and also it includes multinational corporations that have a significant operations in Bahrain. So those would be the reporting that I would be considering. And when we look into their reporting, we can also investigate the influencing factor, influencing potential firm and industry characteristics that actually determine the local community social disclosure of companies in the kingdom. We addressed, I think, the significance, how this would be significant to policymakers, local communities, companies. Now, what's very interesting about this, in many research fields, we address how this can impact policymakers, true, how it can impact companies when it comes to complying with sustainability reporting frameworks. That's true as well. But I think what's the add-on on this research is that we are also talking about how communities would be impacted, raising awareness that, companies have to do something when it comes to communities, they have to contribute, is many local communities are not aware. There is a social contract between the companies and the organizations, but local communities feel that they don't have the power. And by highlighting the issue of the importance of this reporting now moving from voluntary to mandatory, then local communities can also feel the impact of that particular change and development. We conducted several, a systematic literature review where we analyzed the different articles that we got into themes, right? And when we did that, we also highlighted the theoretical lens that we are going to address that will help us to establish a theoretical framework, right? So the theoretical, the theories, the relevant theories when it comes to this research is mainly the system-oriented theories, political economy theory, that everything exists within a context and we cannot ignore that context, i.e. companies in a particular country would decide to report for different reasons. Sometimes the reasons are very global, But when we look at it within, we understand that the way we do it in Bahrain is different than the way we do it in the United States, because the political economy is different. So that was the major theory, leading theory when it comes to that particular research. Under political economy theory, we also address I would call them the sub-theories under political economy, and that includes a legitimacy theory, stakeholder theory, and institutional theory, right? I.e., these theories answer one important question as it relates to my research, because these theories can be applied in many different research. But in that particular research, I'm answering one important question: why do companies decide to report on on local communities, although they are not required by law to do so? And companies do it for different reasons. According to legitimacy, is that they understand that there's a social contract between them and their communities, and the moment they decide not to put enough attention, they will lose their legitimacy because of that social contract, and that social contract is usually implicit. And then there's another theory that explains this, which is the institutional theory. Here we are discussing basically if things become very much institutionalized, i.e. if a company decides to do something, then other companies, if they decide not to follow that, they will be seen as the exception. And no companies would like to be seen as the exception, because then they will be highlighted as non-complying, right? And then we have the stakeholder theory. Here we are talking about companies prioritizing stakeholders based on their power, potentially. So many companies would decide to put a lot of attention when it comes to investor-related issues. The financials will be all over the place. Interestingly, even when we report on sustainability, because of the power of investors, sometimes companies feel obliged to put the report in a way that would address ESG investing issues rather than actual local community issues. So the power of the stakeholders and will play a big role in actually defining why a company would report in a particular format. Yes, so it's all about the economy, society, and the environment and the interplay. The research followed 4 main stages, if I can summarize them into stages. The first is the systematic literature review, because this is very important to validate why I'm moving forward with investigating local community-related disclosure in the Kingdom of Bahrain. Then we would, there's a policy analysis and of regulatory guidelines of sustainability reporting frameworks, right? And here it was an opportunity to look into the multiple reporting frameworks, whether they were sustainability reporting frameworks or regulatory frameworks, about how to the reporting practice overall, to compare it with what we currently have in the Kingdom of Bahrain. And then we moved forward with the content analysis of the local community disclosures, i.e. we selected we decided to go with the full population when it comes to listed companies. Now, I understand we don't have too many, but then the most important thing here is to see the progression, how this started 2018 up till 2023. So for 6 years, 6 consecutive years, the reports of the listed companies in Bahrain have been analyzed with regards to sustainability reporting, in particular with regards to local community disclosure. And we also included in the sample multinational corporations, because when it comes to local communities, it's all about the impact that the companies have. So, and usually the most significant impact is by companies that have large operations that can have the potential to harm the environment, for example. And that includes multinational communities in many cases. Another reason why multinational corporations were included is because their reporting framework is perceived to be more comprehensive, and that would allow us to refine, to understand the gaps in our national framework, so that we can address that in terms of what improvements we want to see when it comes to sustainability reporting. The main regulatory framework and literature that has been used include Global Reporting Initiative standards, international financial reporting standards when it comes to the latest sustainability disclosure standards, the European sustainability reporting standards, and definitely the Bahrain Board's voluntary disclosure. But we also to develop an index, because for us to, I wanted to do the content analysis of the report, so I have to have an index. So we needed to establish an index, what we called it the Local Community Disclosure Index, for me to say that this company addressed this element when it comes to community, and it was not just superficial, but it was substantive in nature. Interestingly, the reporting standards lack enough information about local community disclosure. So it was, but that's also an opportunity when it comes to the research, because that would constructing an index for disclosure analysis is a contribution to research by itself, right? So we also used the UN Convention, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and other very important internationally accepted literature, right? After developing the index, performed the content analysis, and subject to all reliability and validity tests that we had to do to ensure that the context is fit for purpose. And based on that, we can move forward with, analyzing the factors that contribute to, when we get a score, we call it the Local Community Index score, and that score can enable us to basically do all the different quantitative analysis thereafter. So that's basically it, right?